Evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. The big stories tonight. The defense chief wants the Presidential Security Group to do some explaining for the unauthorized use of COVID-19 vaccines. He wants all military vaccinations halted. That vaccine developed by Sinopharm turns out to be 79% effective based on latest phase 3 data. Meanwhile, AstraZeneca just got the go signal for public use in the United Kingdom. The United States, for its part, has been added to the country's travel ban following a reported case of the British variant in Colorado. But experts have reason to believe that the new variant might already be here. While PhilHealth officials have yet to clear the agency of corruption allegations, the state's health insurer is already set to hike member contributions come January. And a landmark law has just been passed in Argentina. They have now legalized abortion up to the 14th week of pregnancy. We begin tonight with the defense chief demanding an explanation from the Presidential Security Group why it used unregulated vaccines on its troops. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana also ordered a halt to all pending vaccinations in the military until the vaccines are approved by the FDA. At the wreath-laying ceremony for the
124th death anniversary of Jose Rizal, Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana said even he was kept in the dark about the inoculation of members of the Presidential Security Group. Pressed by reporters, Lorenzana acknowledged that the vaccines were smuggled because their importation was not authorized by the FDA.
Yeah, it's smuggled because they're not authorized hindi authorized magpapasok dito. Only the government can authorize that.
Because of this, Lorenzana is now asking the PSG to explain why they use the vaccines without authorization. Lorenzana is also putting a stop to all future vaccinations in the military, at least until the vaccines are approved by the FDA. All the known COVID vaccines require 2 doses to take effect. However, Lorenzana also defended the vaccines used on the troops, saying they were authentic although yet unapproved. Lorenzana also cited the need to protect the president from COVID-19.
In a way, yung vaccine naman hindi fake. Totoo naman. Hindi naman sila nagkaroon ng side effects. At sa tingin ko, okay naman epekto sa kanila. Kaya them.
For the Health Department, the FDA has the sole authority to allow the use of new vaccines. Health spokesperson Maria Rosario Vergere told One News' The Chiefs that no one is exempted from the law.
Well, the law is clear that any product that the population here in the Philippines will be consuming or will be using should be registered by the Food and Drug Administration. We are warning those suppliers and distributors that there is accorded sanctions and violations and sanctions for this kind of acts.
Philippine Foundation for Vaccination Executive Director Dr. Lulu Bravo agreed, saying any vaccination should be stopped until the FDA approval is released.
As far as you're concerned, as far as your foundation is concerned, the Vaccine Foundation, should government discontinue giving these unauthorized vaccines until the FDA gives it a formal approval until dumaan siya sa proseso?
Yes, definitely. At bigyan tayo ng magandang explanation. Ang pinakamasaklap na hindi sana dapat mangyari, mapolitika yung vaccine. Kasi ang dapat manaig yung science.
Even before President Duterte revealed the early immunization of soldiers, there have already been reports alleging COVID-19 vaccinations in Binondo. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno said they are still monitoring these reports.
Now, so far, with the report given to me as an update, wala pa kaming nakitang clinic or particular na individual na matukoy. So, lahat chismis pa lang.
The local chief executive asks Manileños to patiently wait for the FDA approval of vaccines, which could take place next year. For News 5, Justine Punsalang. We are One News.
vaccines reportedly administered on members of the PSG proved to be 79.34% efficient. This is based on an interim analysis of phase 3 clinical trials of shots developed by China's Sinopharm. The maker, however, did not provide details on the number of infections in their trial. The results also differs largely from the 89% rating it got in the United Arab Emirates earlier this month. The Beijing firm has applied for conditional approval at China's National Medical Products Administration. Meanwhile, the vaccines developed by the University of Oxford and British drug maker AstraZeneca has been authorized for emergency use in the United Kingdom. The shots are expected to be rolled out next week. Britain is currently struggling with a surge in cases due to a new variant of COVID-19 reported in the country. Meanwhile, the Philippine government has expanded the travel restrictions on countries hit by the new COVID-19 variant. Let's find out the latest edition in this report by Greg Gregorio.
The country's travel restriction just got broader. The United States is now included in the expanded travel restrictions imposed by the government. Palace spokesman Harry Roque has confirmed this in a radio interview, noting that returning Filipinos are exempted. He says the Health Department and the Foreign Affairs Department will issue further guidelines. The U.S. has reported at least one case of the new COVID-19 variant, particularly in Colorado. But Dr. Nicanor Austriaco of the UP Octa research team says that the B117 variant first detected in the UK might have entered the country already. In an interview with 1PHS sa Totoo Lang, Austriaco explained that it possibly came from Singapore.
So if it arrived in Singapore December 6th, and we only close our borders on December 24th, that leaves 2 weeks for balikbayans from Europe and from England to return home. So I am sure it is likely that it's already here.
But the DOH assures the public that actions are underway to verify the presence of the variant.
The Philippine Genome Center, the RITM, and the National Institutes of Health are already starting to do their genome sequencing just to identify if this variant is already here.
During the year-end presser of the DOH, Duque has admitted that there were missteps in the government's response to the health crisis.
Tama ho, may mga missteps, may mga pagkakamali, pero yung mga pagkakamaling iyan ay nagsisilbing mga leksyon para lamang mas maging matagumpay ang tugon sa COVID-19.
In his defense, the health chief explains that we have to consider that the health situation is unprecedented. He goes on to highlight the government's efforts, including the increased testing capacity involving 199 testing laboratories. Duque also notes that more beds have been allocated for isolation facilities and hospitals across the country. He adds that the government has hired and redeployed thousands of healthcare workers. The official then vows to continue ramping up their efforts against COVID-19 come 2021. Meanwhile, Duque defers giving more comments on the unregulated vaccination among members of the Presidential Security Group.
Antayin na lamang natin dahil magsasagawa ng investigasyon ang FDA at kasama ang Bureau of Customs.
For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
Sulu's local government is studying the possibility of extending the lockdown in the province due to the new COVID-19 variant. As it stands, Sulu will bar entry of outsiders, including locally stranded individuals and migrant workers, from January 4 to 17. Frontliners are exempted. Entry of goods from other areas will be allowed to aid residents.
Ito ay para sa kanila, hindi naman para sa atin lamang, kung hindi para sa buong komunidad. So wala silang takot dahil tao lamang ang hindi pwede.
The Octa research team says it does not necessarily approve of lockdowns. In an interview with 1PH sa Totoo Lang, research fellow Nicanor Austriaco said Sulu must instead ramp up quarantine measures. He is proposing that travelers to Sulu undergo a full 14-day quarantine. They must also be prohibited from going to Metro Manila.
A lockdown would be an extreme response because the numbers are so low. And I think what the President President is saying is that if the numbers in January become unmanageable, if the wave becomes a tsunami, then we will have to lock down.
We'll go for a quick break. When the big story returns. The country's population is expected to hit 110.8 million in 2021. This as unplanned pregnancies have increased during the lockdown. The details later. Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. Following the broader travel order to prevent the entry of a new COVID-19 variant, arriving passengers at the NAIA are now required to undergo 14-day quarantines. But does the country have enough quarantine facilities? Gerard de la Peña tells us.
The halls of the Ninoy Aquino International Airport are almost empty. Far different from past holiday seasons when the main gateway is maxed out. But passenger volume will decline even more in the coming weeks. This as the Transportation Department orders to reduce the passenger cap to 2,000 from the previous 5,000. The order aims to ensure there will be sufficient quarantine facilities for arriving passengers.
Napag-usapan na rin ng DOTR air sector to reduce the volume of yung capacity natin sa MIA to further reduce yung capacity dahil nga in anticipation na baka mapuno yung mga hotels natin.
The government has mandated that passengers from the United Kingdom and 19 other countries with reported cases of the new variant undergo 14-day quarantine, even if their RT-PCR results turn out negative. But this could put a strain on the availability of quarantine facilities.
Sana hindi na madagdagan yung 20 nakalistang bansa o mababawasan pa yung 20 bansa para maibsan yung bilang ng mga nagpo-14-day quarantine.
As early as now, arriving passengers are dreading the 14-day quarantine.
Sana na lang po, 3 days na lang. Kasi nakakainip yung mag-stay dun, parang ang bilanggo.
Those from places included in the travel ban have canceled their plans to come home.
Bigyan ka lang ng bakasyon ng amo mo is 2 weeks din ang ibibigay sa'yo. So, paano yun? Maubos yung araw mo sa quarantine. So, yun na lang. Hindi ka na lang muna talaga uuwi.
Philippine passport holders may return to the country as long as they undergo a 2-week quarantine upon arrival. Despite the travel restriction, foreigner spouses of Filipinos will also be allowed entry, as well as foreigners who are Philippine residents and investors. The Transportation Department said more countries are likely to be added to the travel order as reports of cases of the more infectious variant increase. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, we are One News.
The government's Build program also suffered during the pandemic with quarantine restrictions limiting construction work in the country. Let's take a look at how public works played out this 2020. strict lockdowns beginning mid-March paved the way for a suspension in infrastructure projects as the government implemented stay-at-home orders. Infrastructure spending dropped 18% year-on-year in the 10 months to October. Over 100 billion pesos of DPWH budget this year was also realigned towards COVID-19 response. The private sector also hit a snag in their infra projects, from the steel girder collapse in San Miguel Corporation's Skyway Extension project to the government thumbing down Megawide's original proponent status for the NAIA rehabilitation. To wrap up the year, corruption issues rocked the Public Works Department. President Duterte went as far as releasing names of congressmen supposedly, allegedly in cahoots with district engineers to pocket kickbacks on local projects. Now, all of this as unemployment surged following the plunge in economic activity. Unemployment hit a record high in April at 17.7% during the height of lockdowns. This translates to 7 million jobless Filipinos during the month. The rate also has since eased from there, but only because more Filipinos have given up on their job hunts. Now, government is banking on infrastructure yet again to drive those employment numbers up. They also hope that it will help the economy stage a 7.5% comeback next year. With this, the DPWH is getting the second biggest allocation for 2021 at nearly 700 billion pesos. That's higher than the DOH, who is at the forefront of the battle against COVID-19. Now, just a day before New Year's Eve, customers have flocked to markets to buy round fruits, symbolizing good luck. Authorities, meanwhile, are monitoring crowds to ensure minimum health protocols are being observed. Shaila Francisco tells us what went down at the stalls, and she herself bought a set for Medianoche.
Nicole buys round fruits yearly for New Year's Eve. She believes it will attract fortune as the fruits resemble the shape of coins. But given the current situation, Nicole bought less than usual due to her tight budget.
Konti-konti lang po ang binibili para lang po may ilagay sa mesa po.
Barangay public safety officers were dispersed outside Muñoz Market to ensure that retailers and customers observe minimum health protocols. Customers not wearing face masks were apprehended. They were asked to pay fines at the City Hall within 5 days. But what also dismayed local enforcers are the retailers who expanded their stalls along the sidewalks.
Ang kapiran mga vendors, 2 araw na lang bago matapos yung taon. Of course, they wanted to extend their paninda sa kalye, which is hindi namin mahigpit namin tinututulan.
Some retailers have increased the prices of their fruits by 20 to 100 pesos. Watermelon, for instance, now costs around 200 pesos each from just 100 pesos last week. Aside from high demand, the spate of previous typhoons had also destroyed some fruits. Retailers are already preparing for another surge of customers tomorrow. They still expect another uptick in prices.
Kung kailan nga nag-pandemic, mas mahal ang prutas ngayon. Hirap kami mamakyaw ngayon, pabalik-balik kami sa pamamakyaw dahil nag-aabang kami ng dating ng kalakal.
To attract more buyers, some retailers offer discounts, such as 3 for 100 promos for select fruits.
Dinidiscount namin yung sobra sa presyo.
Kunwari, 180.
Opo, magiging 100 na lang o kaya 110, ganyan. Tatanggalin namin yung pinakabutal.
Bakit niyo po ginagawa ito?
Para ho mabilis at para makatulong sa mga tao na talagang wala, as in ganito naman talaga epidemya.
We're here in Muñoz Market to buy 12 round fruits for good luck and good fortune the next year. Now we have 1,000 pesos. Let's see if we can buy all 12 fruits. Let's go. I tried to check stalls selling cheaper fruits. Like others, I haggled with retailers as prices of these staple food items have increased. Overall, I spent 848 pesos.
So we still have more than 140 pesos, so we can still buy pineapple, which is also a sign of good luck, which costs around 30 to 50 pesos here.
The Agriculture Department, for its part, tells the public to check out online stores for a much safer shopping experience. The DA says its Kadiwa stores offer food items at cheaper prices, both online and in physical stalls. The agency also urges the public to buy domestic fruits for the new year to help local farmers raise their income. Shaila Francisco, VR1 News.
And these are the other big stories tonight. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana and Manila Mayor Isko Moreno led the commemoration for the 124th death anniversary of Jose Rizal in Luneta. Compared to the previous year, fewer participants were present in compliance with IATF guidelines on mass gatherings. The country's population is projected to swell in 2021. The Commission on Population forecasts 110.8 million Filipinos next year. That's a rise from the 109.4 million at the start of 2020. It adds that the number may even go higher due to more unplanned pregnancies over the pandemic. We'll go for a quick break. When the big story returns, PhilHealth members have to brace for higher fees in 2021. The state insurer is adjusting its rates by as much as 0.5%. And one of the most conservative countries in Latin America just made a landmark vote allowing abortion. The details next. Good evening. I'm Robbie Alampay. You're still watching The Big Story. PhilHealth members are left scratching their heads as the state insurer is set to impose higher contribution rates in 2021. For some lawmakers, the corruption-ridden agency should first resolve issues hounding them. Marian Enriquez with The Big Story.
40-year-old Rian Grimares, who works as an account officer at a motorcycle shop in San Juan, Batangas, earns 12,000 pesos monthly. His company deducts 180 pesos from his monthly income for his PhilHealth contribution. Rian is worried about a bigger deduction as the state insurer will increase its premium rate from 3% to 3.5% next year.
Kung magkano lang muna yung dati, di yun na lang muna dapat. Kasi medyo mahirap ang buhay ngayon eh. Tapos, ang sahod namin, 461 a day lang.
The adjustment of premium rates is mandated under the Section 10 of the Universal Healthcare Law. By 2021, those who have a monthly basic salary of 10,000 pesos and below will have a fixed contribution of 350 pesos per month, while those earning 70,000 pesos and above will have a monthly contribution of 2,450 pesos. PhilHealth assures Filipinos that this will be beneficial for them.
Each time na tayo po ay mga ilangang ma-confine, magpagamot, ay immediately eligible po tayo sa benepisyo. So hindi issue kung tayo ay may bayad, kulang ang bayad o walang bayad, wala na hong ganong pinag-uusapan. Immediately tayo po ay makaka-avail ng ating PhilHealth benefit.
The adjusted rates will ensure enough funding for programs under the landmark law. By 2021, the PhilHealth members will be assigned a primary care provider or healthcare professional under the program Konsulta or Konsultasyong Sulit at Tama. There will also be no co-payment or no balance billing for confinements in basic or ward accommodations in both government and private healthcare facilities. There will also be a lifetime coverage for all members reaching the age of retirement and after contributing for at least 120 months. But for some lawmakers, this may not be the right time to impose a hike on PhilHealth contributions. Senator Amy Marcos says the hike is a cruel and unusual punishment to PhilHealth members. She adds that the agency should first resolve the issues that continue to hound the institution. Senator Francis Pangilinan meanwhile questions what he calls an unbelievable increase when PhilHealth has been criticized for pocketing billions of pesos. While PhilHealth respects the sentiments of some lawmakers, Balenya is calling on the public not to lose their trust in the state insurer. In an interview with Radio 5, Presidential Anti-Corruption Commission Chairman Dante Jimenez said they are closely monitoring PhilHealth and other agencies.
Yung sa PhilHealth po, maniwala ka, may second batch pa dyan. Kami po noong 2019, just to share with you, nireport na namin yan sa Presidente. At ngayon, kita mo. Oh. So it's going well now with the leadership of Dante Geran.
He adds that they have been giving advice to PhilHealth Chief Dante Geran on how to clean up the corruption-ridden agency. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News. Okay.
Now time for the big stories in sports. A look at the game with Paolo Del Rosario.
Thanks, Robbie. In the NBA, a new record for three-pointers made in a game has been set by the Milwaukee Bucks in a landslide victory against the Miami Heat, 144-97. The Bucks. Over in the Eastern Conference, the Boston Celtics clawed their way back from a 17-point deficit to beat the Indiana Pacers 116-111. Jason, catch all of the NBA regular season action on NBA TV Philippines. And that's it for the latest in the world of sports. Catch us later at 9:30 p.m. on One News and One Sports Plus. My name is Paolo Del Rosario, and this has been The Game. Back to you, Robbie.
Thanks, Paolo. Argentina has become the first major country in Latin America to legalize abortion after the approval of its Senate on Wednesday. The controversial bill was passed with 38 in favor, 29 against, one person abstained. A crowd of thousands in green cheered and welcomed the result outside the Senate building in Buenos Aires. Argentine law previously allowed abortion only when there is a serious risk to the health of the mother or in cases of rape. The new law allows it through the 14th week of pregnancy, a move criticized by the Catholic Church, now headed by Pope Francis, who is also Argentinian. For all the hardships and challenges in 2020, it's quite understandable why people are eager to bid good riddance to 2020. And for New Yorkers, that means shredding all the awfulness the past year, and 2020 had its fair share of those. At the annual Good Riddance event at Times Square, people lined up to shred the things they want to forget this year. Carrying papers, they wrote things of the past year that they would rather leave behind and had them placed in a shredder. Submissions were varied, but as expected, were pretty much linked to the COVID-19 pandemic, from social distancing to too much gloom and zoom. And to cap off their disdain for the year, those who turned up also smashed the piñata of the terribleness that was 2020. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. Signal channels 8 and 250. Now, please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, you can visit our webpage, onenews.ph. I'm Robbie Alampay. We are One News. Good evening.